Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're journeying back, quite a way back actually, over a century, to the year 1902.
1902.
Yes, to a remote, sun-baked corner of South Australia. Our mission is to unravel a chilling, true crime mystery that, well, despite a sensational trial and enduring public fascination, remains officially unsolved to this day.
It's quite remarkable, really.
We're going to immerse ourselves in the perplexing case of Bertha Schippan, a young girl who tragically lost her life on New Year's night. It sparked this huge legal drama that actually changed Australian criminal investigation forever, but it left a community without definitive answers.
That's right.
We'll sift through the conflicting accounts, the tantalizing, circumstantial evidence, and the enduring theories, trying to piece together fragments from a time long past to understand what truly happened in that isolated farmhouse.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, beyond the immediate tragedy, is how this case, emerging from what seems like a simple rural setting, just transcended its local confines.
Right.
It became a national sensation, a crucial benchmark for the very beginnings of criminal investigation in Australia. It's like a stark mirror reflecting the profound limitations of early 20th century forensics, the undeniable power of public perception, and the deep, often unhealed scars a community bears when such an unfathomable tragedy strikes and justice remains elusive.
Yeah, that staying power.
Exactly. We'll explore not just the bare facts, but the complex why behind the lingering questions, inviting you, our listener, to consider the many different viewpoints that have shaped this truly perplexing situation for generations.
Get ready, because this story, it really has all the elements of a gripping whodunit. You've got a tight-knit family with hidden tensions, a secret love affair, a violent struggle in the dead of night.
All in pitch darkness, supposedly.
Right. And a trail of clues that, rather than providing clarity, only seem to raise more questions. It's one of those cases that forces you to become a detective, piecing together fragments of truth from a time when the very tools of investigation were, well, pretty basic.
Rudimentary, absolutely.
It's a cautionary tale, a historical puzzle, and I think a testament to the enduring human need for resolution.
Definitely.
Okay, let's begin by truly immersing ourselves in the setting. Toowoomba, South Australia, in 1902.
Right.
This wasn't just any rural settlement, it was a deeply insular pocket founded by German Lutheran immigrants back in 1876. They were driven by a quest for religious freedom and a desire to preserve their cultural heritage.
Very important to them.
Picture it. Poor limestone country, not far from Truro, described vividly as barren and dry, a pocket of agricultural poverty surrounded by plenty.
Not easy land.
No, it was a landscape that demanded resilience, isolating its inhabitants not just geographically, but culturally too. We're talking about roughly 115 kilometers northeast of Adelaide.
Which was a significant distance back then.
Oh, huge. Days by horse and cart across pretty unforgiving terrain. And to give you a real sense of its enduring remoteness, even modern census data from 2021 shows only 26 inhabitants.
26, wow.
A true testament to its isolation. The local public school had only been open for about 2 decades when this tragedy occurred, which means amenities we just take for granted today, electricity, rapid communication, even effective local policing were virtually non-existent.
And this geographical and cultural isolation isn't just background noise. It's absolutely crucial to understanding every twist and turn of this case.
Right, it sets the stage.
It really does. These Prussian settlers, having fled religious persecution, established communities that deliberately fostered a fierce retention of their language, their customs, their strict moral codes, generation after generation. The Lutheran Church wasn't merely a place of worship. It was the bedrock of their social structure, a dominant force shaping a deeply disciplined and, well, often insular environment.
Like a world within a world.
Exactly. Think of it like that. Internal matters were often resolved internally, and external scrutiny was met with, well, suspicion.
I can imagine.
This insular nature meant that any event, especially a tragedy like a violent passing, was not just deeply felt, but could also be fiercely protected, or perhaps even concealed, from outsiders. The community's values, its tight-knit yet potentially stifling social fabric.
Right.
It creates a unique and often complex lens through which to view the subsequent events and the shocking trial that followed.
So it wasn't just the poor roads and distance that isolated them, but a kind of deliberate cultural choice too.
Yes, very much so.
This must have created incredible pressure for families to maintain appearances, to handle internal disputes discreetly. It could have been a pressure cooker for hidden conflicts.
Exactly right. When the community is your entire world, reputation, respectability, and adherence to strict moral codes become paramount, absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
Any transgression, particularly something as scandalous as, say, an illicit affair, which we'll definitely get to, would carry an immense social cost. This environment makes the unfolding events not just a criminal case, but a profound sociological study of a community under immense strain.
Okay, so within this tightly knit yet potentially stifling community lived the Schippan family. Mathis and Johann Schippan, both Prussian immigrants, they had 7 children together, which is pretty common for that era and culture, I suppose.
Large families, yes.
Our story centers around their youngest, Bertha, born in January 1888, making her just 13, almost 14, at the time she lost her life.
So young.
It's worth noting that some historical sources actually refer to her as 14 or even 16, which highlights some of the minor discrepancies you find in early records. But her birth year confirms she was just 13.
Yeah, those inconsistencies pop up.
Also central to our narrative are her older sister, Maria Auguste, known universally as Mary, aged 24 or 25. She becomes the central figure in the drama.
Absolutely pivotal.
And 2 younger brothers, August, often called Gustav, and Wilhelm, or Willy. These are the individuals who were directly present or, nearby when the horrific events unfolded, their lives forever tied to Bertha's tragic end.
And the family itself, it reflects many of the community's values, but with some notable internal dynamics that would later come under intense scrutiny.
Ah, okay. Like what?
Well, Mathis, the patriarch, he was known for his stern demeanor. People described him as a very strict disciplinarian with a short fuse and even antisocial tendencies. His word was pretty much law in that household.
Right, the strong father figure.
Very much so.
What?
His wife, Joanna, though, was seen in stark contrast, described as having a warm heart and kind nature and being popular amongst the community. A sort of balancing force, perhaps.
Interesting dynamic.
It is. This inherent dynamic, a strict, sometimes volatile patriarch, a kind matriarch, and children living under these strong, sometimes conflicting influences, it undeniably sets the stage for potential hidden conflicts, unexpressed resentments, and complex relationships that investigators would later probe, looking for, cracks in the family facade.
Okay, now let's set the scene for the night of the tragedy. New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1901.
A significant night.
And this was no ordinary night for the Schippans. Mathis and Johann had traveled to Eden Valley, a small town about 20 kilometers away, to visit relatives. That's a pretty decent journey for them.
Definitely. Not just popping down the road.
They weren't expected back until January 2nd, leaving the younger children home alone. Their 2 oldest kids were also away, working on other farms, which was common then.
Right. Standard practice for teenagers needing work.
So that night, only Mary and Bertha were in the main house. They were sharing a bedroom and had gone to bed around 8 p.m., which sounds about right for a rural household back then.
Early nights, early mornings.
Crucially, their brothers, August and Wilhelm, chose to sleep in a separate place, a galvanized room, basically a little shed made of corrugated iron attached to a farm shed, about 90 meters away from the main house.
90 meters. That's nearly a football field away.
Exactly. This detail, the brothers' distance from the main house, will become absolutely critical as we unpack Mary's chilling account of what happened next.
Yes. The parents' absence and the brothers' distant sleeping arrangements created a specific vulnerability. This wasn't just a house. It was a specific tableau of isolation.
Good way to put it.
It meant that in the main residence, only Mary and Bertha were present, creating a very particular set of circumstances for any potential intruder or, for any internal conflict to escalate unchecked.
Right.
And the separation of the brothers, too. It isolates Mary's account as the primary, and indeed initially the only eyewitness testimony from within the house. This immediately places immense pressure on her narrative.
So Mary's account is where the horror truly begins. She claimed that she woke up around 10 p.m. to this horrifying, disorienting sensation. Something heavy lying across me.
Just imagine that, waking up like that in the dark.
Terrifying. She turned instinctively and she said a person jumped up. In the absolute darkness, Mary described this terrifying struggle. She recalled being caught by her arms, pushed first against the sewing machine, then later a small table.
Specific furniture.
Yeah. Amidst this chaos, she felt the assailant had something in his hand. It was a knife, she stated. She then heard something drop. That was the knife.
Weird drop.
In the ensuing panic and disarray, Mary somehow managed to get loose and, remarkably, rushed out from the middle room through the kitchen and out of the kitchen door into the open air. This dramatic escape, this desperate flight in the dark, it's the foundation of her entire story and the core narrative that would be scrutinized so intensely.
And this is where the critical thinking really has to begin, listener. Mary's incredibly detailed account of a struggle in absolute dark. Her ability to describe being caught, pushed against specific furniture, feeling a knife, then hearing it drop.
Yeah.
Without ever seeing her attacker's face, yet later describing him as bearded in eld. It immediately raised red flags for investigators.
How could she know he was bearded in the dark?
Exactly. Her ability to navigate a pitch-black house, including opening a latched kitchen door and escaping while simultaneously processing the sound of a dropping knife. It implies a level of awareness and precise action that investigators, and later the jury, found themselves questioning. Was this the accurate recollection of a traumatized victim, or was it perhaps a narrative carefully constructed to obscure a different truth? The human mind under duress can be both incredibly sharp and sometimes deeply unreliable.
What happened next really underscores the desperation of the situation. After escaping the house, Mary ran, barefoot and terrified, to that galvanized shed where her brothers, August and Wilhelm, were sleeping.
90 meters away.
Right. Initially, her brother Gustav didn't believe her frantic pleas. He thought she was merely dreaming or maybe having a nightmare.
Understandable, perhaps being woken like that.
But Mary insisted. Her terror must have been undeniable. "Gustav, do hurry! Get up, there is someone in the house!" Faced with her palpable fear, they decided it was too dangerous to go back into the dark house. So their frantic journey for help began.
Right.
First, they ran half a mile, about 800 meters, to a neighbor's house. And what's incredible, frankly shocking, is that this neighbor refused to help.
Refused.
Declined to get involved in what must have seemed like a terrifying emergency. Can you imagine that rejection?
It's hard to fathom. Fear.
Yeah.
Apathy. Reluctance to get involved in neighborly business.
Who knows? Undeterred, they then ran over another kilometer to the district constable Lambert's house. What a frantic, desperate journey in the dead of the night, covering such significant distances in absolute terror, all while, this violent scene lay undiscovered just behind them.
The reaction of that neighbor is, well, it's a fascinating detail. It speaks volumes about the community's dynamics, or perhaps a general reluctance to get involved in what might initially have seemed like a domestic disturbance, or maybe even a prank by the children. It paints a picture of isolation extending beyond mere geography, maybe reflecting a social isolation as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the sheer distance covered by the siblings in their desperate plea for help also vividly underscores the profound remoteness of the area and the dire lack of immediate support available in such a dire emergency. This wasn't a quick call to 000. This was a desperate race against time, on foot, in the dark, through fear-stricken silence.
So Constable Lambert, armed with only a staff and handcuffs, pretty basic gear.
A standard issue for the time, yeah.
He returned with the terrified siblings to the Schippan home. Inside, what they found was a truly grisly scene that would haunt them and the community for decades. Bertha Schippan was discovered lying on the floor of her parents' bedroom, face downwards in a pool of blood. Her young life tragically ended.
A horrific discovery.
Their reports were awful. Her throat had been slashed 5 times from ear to ear. But that wasn't all. Later reports detailed up to 40 stab wounds with horrible gashes in the face and throat, her head resting on the right forearm.
40 wounds. The level of violence is extreme.
Dr. Steele, who examined the body, described several cuts, steps, and scratches, some extending to the vertebral column. Both ears were cut through. There were 3 wounds in the face and 1 in the palm of the left hand, clearly indicating defensive wounds.
She fought back.
A chilling testament to her desperate struggle for survival. The cause of her passing was unequivocally the cutting of the carotid artery, leading to what was described as instantaneous death.
Quick, but brutal.
What's incredible and often overlooked in the sensationalism surrounding the case is there was no mention anywhere of a sexual assault.
That's a very significant detail, or rather, a significant absence of detail.
Right. It significantly reshapes the potential motive, doesn't it?
It does. The sheer brutality and the exceptionally high number of wounds, particularly the deep slashes and multiplicity of stab wounds, point to an extreme, almost frenzied level of rage or deeply personal animosity.
Not random, then.
It seems unlikely. This extreme violence, paradoxically, made the motive particularly difficult to ascertain for investigators of the era. Was it a crime of passion, a desperate attempt to silence, or something psychologically more complex? The defensive wounds on Bertha's hands tell a very clear story of a desperate struggle for life, indicating she fought her attacker vigorously right up until her last moments.
Poor girl.
Furthermore, a significant discrepancy immediately emerged. Mary's initial statement claimed that no blood was shed in the house when she left it.
Wait, she said no blood.
That's what was reported initially. Yet Constable Lambert found spurts, splashes, and smears of blood throughout 3 rooms, painting a picture of a prolonged and violent struggle that moved across multiple areas.
That directly contradicts Mary's account.
Directly. This inconsistency would become a cornerstone of the prosecution's case against her.
Okay, so with Bertha's body discovered and the distraught parents hurrying home from Eden Valley, the formal inquiry began, although, well, days after the initial tragedy.
Which is a problem in itself.
Yeah. The local coroner, Mr. W. Milligan, arrived on January 9th. That's a full week after the event.
A week. So much can happen to a scene in a week.
Exactly. This delay meant Bertha's funeral had already taken place, requiring her subsequent exhumation for the coroner's inquest, a stark, somber reminder of the primitive state of forensic investigation back then.
Exhumation. Gosh. A grim necessity given the circumstances.
Mary naturally became the primary witness, providing her dramatic account of the night. But perhaps inevitably, given the circumstances and the discrepancies in her story, she quickly transitioned from eyewitness to the prime suspect.
The focus shifted onto her very quickly.
Detectives meticulously documented what they could from the scene, though by this point, much potential evidence had already been compromised by the passage of time and the well-meaning but untrained crowds who had gathered.
This time lag between the discovery of the body and the arrival of official investigators, it's a critical forensic failure point. Every hour that passes, especially in an uncontrolled environment like that, diminishes the integrity of a crime scene.
Contamination everywhere, basically.
Pretty much. Bertha's exhumation itself, while necessary, further illustrates the initial lack of protocol. In today's world, a crime scene would be immediately secured, cordoned off, processed by highly trained forensic teams. In 1902, it was often a community event first, then an investigation.
Right. So Mary's own physical condition was examined. That was a key piece of evidence. Dr. Steele did the examination.
What does he find?
He noted 2 transverse scratches on the inner side of her right upper arm, a slight bruise over the outer side of the right shoulder, and scratches on both hands, principally between the fingers, though interestingly, they were noted as not so severe as undeceased hands.
So some signs of a struggle, but perhaps not as intense as Bertha's defensive wounds.
Possibly. There were also bruises and discolorations on the legs. But what's particularly significant and a major point of contention during the investigation is that substantial traces of what appeared to be blood were found on Mary's clothes.
Ah, the blood evidence.
Yes, on her brown frock, white apron, and black gem hat, as well as her dark blue skirt and black stockings. Quite a bit.
This immediately became a crucial piece of physical evidence. Or rather, the lack of definitive identification for it became crucial.
How so?
Well, Mary claimed the blood could be from helping her father butcher sheep days before a common enough chore on a farm back then.
Plausible excuse.
On the surface, yes. But the massive problem was the absence of technology to distinguish human from animal blood at the time. It was a catastrophic limitation.
They just couldn't tell the difference.
Not reliably, no. Today, DNA analysis or even basic precipitin tests would immediately differentiate human blood from animal blood, definitively proving or disproving Mary's claim in moments. But in 1902, the technology simply didn't exist.
Wow.
This absence meant a crucial piece of physical evidence remained ambiguously identified, allowing Mary's rather convenient explanation to persist and sow doubt where modern forensics would have provided immediate clarity. This ambiguity fueled both suspicion and, importantly, reasonable doubt.
Okay, then the investigation took a really sensational turn with the revelation of Mary's secret love affair.
Ah, yes, the Nitschke connection.
Detective Fraser, keenly aware of how delicate and scandalous this was in such a prudish, devout community, apparently remarked to the gathered crowd.
What did he say?
Something like, "All you folks not directly interested in this inquiry, children and women in particular, should walk away. I think the men might go too. I'm going to talk to witness on a very delicate matter."
Setting the stage for something scandalous.
Totally. Mary then admitted to a 12-month relationship with Gustav Nitschke, a local laborer. Gustav himself corroborated this.
He confirmed it.
Yes, he even confirmed that familiarity happened at 10 o'clock at night in the kitchen on the Sunday before New Year's Day with young Bertha apparently in the next room.
Oh, suggesting Bertha might have witnessed something.
Exactly. He candidly admitted to improprieties on half a dozen occasions.
This dramatically tarnished Mary's reputation in that highly moralistic and prudish society of 1902, especially within a staunchly Lutheran community where such conduct was strictly forbidden.
Huge scandal.
Massive. The suggestion was quickly made that Bertha, witnessing this illicit affair, might have threatened to tell their strict father, Mathis.
Which could provide Mary with a motive.
Precisely. To silence her sister and protect her reputation and perhaps avoid the severe repercussions from Mathis. Another equally damaging theory floated was Mary's jealousy.
Jealousy over Nitschke.
Yes, fueled by Nitschke admitting to investigators that he had once asked Bertha if she'd like to accompany him to town, to which Bertha, maybe innocently, maybe not, replied, "You'd better ask Mary."
Ooh, that could definitely stir things up.
These revelations painted a very different and very damning picture of Mary in the public eye, laying bare potential motives that the community could readily understand, even if they weren't fully proven.
Okay, so motive established, or at least suggested. What about other physical evidence?
It was equally ambiguous and open to interpretation, which just further muddied the waters.
Like what?
Well, there was a black-handled knife, apparently commonly used by young Willie to clean parrots. It was found cleaned, but still with traces of blood on it.
Cleaned, but not perfectly.
Exactly. Mary stated the knife had simply been on the kitchen table, a mundane explanation for an object that could have been the murder weapon.
Convenient.
Then, hair, appearing torn out by the roots, was found near Bertha's body. Some of this hair was described as more like Mary's hair in character.
More alike. So not a definite match.
No definite match possible back then. But here's a contradiction. Mary was known to be left-handed.
Okay.
And the coroner's conclusion was that Bertha's fatal wounds were inflicted by a right-handed person.
Left-handed suspect, right-handed attack. That's a big inconsistency.
It is. Also, Mary's blue blouse, a potentially crucial garment she might have worn, was never found.
Missing evidence.
Though a blood-stained cuff and sleeve fragment, possibly from that blouse, was discovered under Bertha's body, raising further questions about missing evidence and potential attempts to conceal or dispose of it.
So many conflicting pieces.
This collection of ambiguous evidence is a perfect storm for an early forensic investigation. The knife with blood traces, the hair that might be Mary's, the missing blouse, the handedness issue. Each piece, on its own, could potentially be explained away, but collectively they built a circumstantial case.
Circumstantial but not conclusive.
Exactly. Could an attacker disguise their dominant hand? Was the coroner wrong? Or the hair someone else's? Without the precision of modern forensics, these questions just piled up, creating doubt rather than clarity, making it incredibly challenging to build an unassailable case.
What about efforts to find the supposed intruder, the bearded man Mary described?
Well, they did try. They brought in what was considered the best technology of the time, an Aboriginal tracker named Thomas King, known for his exceptional skills in reading the land. He was called in to search for tracks around the house. His report was stark. Nothing is to be found. He followed the bloodstains to the kitchen door, he said, but there was no trace beyond there. His conclusion. He is certain that no man left the house at the time of the murder.
Wow. That seemed to point right back at someone inside. Back at Mary.
On the surface, yes. But this raises an incredibly important question about the reliability of even the best early forensic efforts.
Why? He was skilled, right?
Exceptionally skilled, yes. But the crucial fact is that King arrived 3 days later, after a windstorm.
3 days in a windstorm. Not ideal for tracking.
Not at all. It significantly compromises the reliability of his findings. Plus, the crime scene had already been heavily disturbed by that large search party and numerous nosy neighbors who had trampled the area, potentially destroying any discernible tracks that might have existed in the first place.
So his certainty might have been misplaced because the evidence was already gone?
It's highly possible. It highlights a fundamental limitation of the investigation. The immediate scene was compromised before true forensic scrutiny could begin. It wasn't just a failure of technology, perhaps, but a failure of protocol, a concept that barely existed then.
Okay. So despite all this conflicting and ambiguous evidence, the inquest jury, after deliberating, they returned with a pretty snark verdict.
What did they conclude?
Read by the visibly affected coroner, it declared, Bertha Elizabeth Schippan met her death by having her throat cut by Mary Augusta Schippan.
Wow. A direct accusation.
A formal pronouncement, essentially a public accusation, cementing the official suspicion against Mary. She was then immediately charged with murder and transferred to Adelaide jail.
Setting the stage for the trial.
Exactly. A dramatic, high-stakes trial that would captivate the entire nation and become a defining moment in South Australian legal history.
The trial of the century, for its time, perhaps.
It certainly seems like it. The trial of Mary Schippan kicked off on March 5, 1902 in Adelaide. It lasted an intense 6 days.
6 days. A long trial for back then.
And it quickly became this unparalleled public spectacle. Thousands of curious onlookers flocked to the courthouse, desperate for a glimpse of the proceedings, of Mary herself.
Sensationalism taking hold.
Totally. And what's incredible is how competitive the media coverage was. It illustrates the huge public interest in this, burgeoning era of rapid news. The Advertiser, one of the big newspapers, they famously purchased a motor car. Allegedly the first time in Australia that journalists used a car to speed up reporting.
A motor car in 1902? Just to get the scoop.
Yep, just to beat their rivals to the telegraph station in Angaston, 26 kilometers away, to get their headlines out first.
Oh.
This wasn't just a legal case, it was primetime entertainment.
This intensity of media coverage and public interest, it highlights a crucial aspect of the case. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence in the legal sense. It was about public perception, the collective moral reckoning of a society.
The court of public opinion.
Absolutely. The newspapers weren't just reporting. They were shaping opinions, fanning the flames of speculation, effectively conducting a trial long before the jury rendered its verdict. The spectacle itself, from the crowds to the journalistic race, underscores how deeply this tragedy resonated, tapping into both fear and fascination across the country.
Mary was actually fortunate in her defense. She was represented by the leading South Australian barrister of the day, Sir Josiah Simon KC.
King's Counsel, a top lawyer.
A formidable legal mind. His fee was substantial, 50 guineas, a huge sum then, but it was reportedly paid by a local farmer who was sympathetic to the Schippan family.
Interesting. Shows the community was divided.
Yeah. Simon's defense strategy was, nothing short of brilliant, and in many ways, pretty ruthless.
How so?
He relentlessly attacked Gustav Nitschke's character. Portrayed him not just as a questionable witness, but as contemptible. A villainous character who has shamelessly abused the Schippan family's trust.
Turning the tables on the lover.
Completely. Simon masterfully highlighted Nitschke's admission of illicit intercourse with Mary, his openly flirting with young Bertha, and even scandalously the fact he was pursuing another local girl whose wealthy background made her a better marriage prospect.
Painting him as a cad, basically.
Exactly. This strategy was meticulously designed to shift the blame, divert public sentiment away from Mary, and, crucially, inject overwhelming reasonable doubt into the jury's minds.
And was it effective? Highly effective. A masterclass in legal defense in an era where character and public morality held immense sway. Simon successfully shifted public sympathy towards Mary, painting Nitschke as public enemy number one.
So the public turned on Nitschke.
Viciously. The reaction was immediate. Gustav Nitschke was vigorously hooted by crowds of 2,000 to 3,000 people outside the courthouse. He needed police protection to get through the hostile throngs. He was even physically assaulted at one point.
Wow. That's intense.
It demonstrates how moral outrage and the perception of a person's character, especially in such a prudish, devout society, could dramatically overshadow actual culpability for the crime in the public's eye. It even led to vigilante-style retribution. Simon understood that if he couldn't definitively prove Mary's innocence, he could certainly make Nitschke look far more guilty in the court of public opinion.
So while Simon was attacking Nitschke, what was the prosecution doing? They were led by Charles Dashwood.
Right. Dashwood's team focused relentlessly on what they saw as the holes in Mary's alibi. The suspicious washing of her clothes after the event, and that considerable body of circumstantial evidence that had led to her initial charging.
The blood, the knife, the hair.
Exactly. They presented voluminous medical evidence detailing the horrific wounds inflicted upon Bertha and the extensive blood spatter patterns found within the house. They tried to build that circumstantial picture. But despite the extensive medical testimony and the weight of the circumstantial evidence, the case against Mary ultimately lacked that definitive, irrefutable proof, that smoking gun directly linking her to the act itself. The Chief Justice, Sir Samuel Way, in his meticulous summing up of the case for the jury, he famously encapsulated the prosecution's challenge regarding Mary's alleged intruder.
What did he say?
He noted pointedly, he came from nowhere and vanished into empty space again, for the police could find no trails.
Oof. That's pretty damning for the prosecution's ability to counter her story.
It was incredibly powerful. It didn't directly endorse Mary's story, but it validated the impossibility of disproving it with the evidence at hand. The prosecution had to not only prove Mary's guilt, but also disprove the existence of this bearded intruder.
Which they couldn't do.
In 1902, without modern forensics, that was an almost insurmountable task. The Chief Justice was effectively stating that the prosecution's circumstantial evidence, while strong, hadn't quite reached the standard of beyond reasonable doubt, especially when confronted with an unverified, yet equally difficult to refute, alternative narrative.
So the verdict. After 2 hours deliberation, which seems quite short given the complexity and the public interest,
Relatively quick, yes.
the jury returned with their verdict, not guilty.
Not guilty.
The announcement was met with this explosion of loud and continuous cheering from that huge crowd, 3,000 to 4,000 people gathered outside the court. Seems public opinion had really shifted during the trial.
Simon's strategy worked on the public too, then.
Apparently so. Mary, overwhelmed by the news, fainted upon hearing the verdict. She was embraced by her father and was cheered again and again as she was driven away in a cab. A very dramatic scene of relief and public vindication. A very different fate. He was quickly escorted out through a rear entrance to avoid the hostile, jeering crowd. His reputation, regardless of his actual involvement, was irreversibly damaged.
This outcome really reflects a convergence of critical factors, doesn't it? The limitations of the evidence, Sir Josiah Simon's powerful and morally driven defense, and that shifting public sentiment that ultimately saw Mary as another victim rather than the perpetrator.
Yeah.
The Chief Justice's comments about the elusive intruder really highlighted the prosecution's inability to definitively counter Mary's story. It demonstrates how, in the absence of a clear, compelling motive for Mary that was unequivocally proven, and the inherent improbability of an intruder just vanishing without a trace, well, enough reasonable doubt was left for the jury to acquit.
Makes sense.
It's a powerful illustration of the justice system at work, even with its early 20th century limitations. It emphasizes that an acquittal isn't necessarily a declaration of innocence, but rather an acknowledgement that guilt has not been proven beyond reasonable doubt.
So what happened afterwards? Mary was acquitted, but did life go back to normal?
Far from it. After spending months in Adelaide jail, Mary Schippan returned to Twitter. But her life was irrevocably altered by the ordeal and the lingering stain of public accusation even after the acquittal.
People still suspected her.
It seems so. She became a recluse, retreating from society. She never married and tragically died of tuberculosis in 1919 at the age of 41.
Only 41. So young.
Yes. She was buried under her maiden name, Maria Auguste Schippan, at St. Peter's Lutheran Church Cemetery in Bauer. There are some conflicting reports out there suggesting she married Nitschke and moved away, but our headstone and later historical accounts clearly show these to be inaccurate.
And the family.
The Schippan family, seeking to escape the constant side-eye from the community and the haunting memories, eventually built a new stone house on their property and later moved to Light Pass, about 30 kilometers away, trying to find some peace, presumably.
Can't blame them.
What's truly fascinating here, beyond the legal outcome, is the profound and long-lasting impact of the accusation, even after acquittal. Mary's reclusive life and eventual death under her maiden name suggest the indelible stain left by the trial. It illustrates how societal judgment and the trauma of public accusation can effectively condemn someone regardless of a legal verdict.
The community's judgment was its own sentence.
In a way, yes. The community's persistent side-eye and suspicion forced the family to physically move, demonstrating the deep lasting scar this event left on their lives, and their standing within their deeply traditional community. It speaks to a level of psychological and social punishment that can transcend the courtroom.
And what about Gustav Nitschke, the lover who became public enemy number one?
His life also changed dramatically. A stark example of a man becoming a public scapegoat. Hooted, assaulted by angry crowds. He left South Australia in 1903, just a year after Mary's acquittal.
Just skipped town.
Basically. Some reports suggest he changed his name, moved interstate, married, and had 6 kids, trying to build a completely new life far from the notoriety. Others simply state he left the country. His ultimate fate is kind of shrouded in rumor.
Another life ruined by the case.
Indeed. Another poignant example of a life irrevocably altered by public scorn, even when a person is innocent of the primary crime. His disappearance and rumored name change add another layer to the mystery, particularly for those who still believe he might have been involved in some capacity, even if not the direct perpetrator. It highlights how a community's moral outrage, once stoked, can inflict a profound and lasting punishment, effectively exiling an individual from their established life and identity, regardless of legal findings.
So the community of Twitta, they never really found closure then?
It seems not. The mystery of who ended Bertha's life persisted through generations. The lack of a definitive answer kept the case alive in local folklore, whispered tales, historical discussions, fueling various theories about who truly committed the horrific act.
What were some of the main theories that emerged over the years?
Well, one prominent theory, quite dark and deeply unsettling, actually implicated Mathis Schippan, Bertha's own father.
The strict father. Why him?
Well, he had that documented history of violence, remember, that altercation in 1896 where he fired at them with his rifle and one of them was actually wounded. He stood trial but was acquitted for that.
Okay, so a violent temper.
And rumors passed down through generations claimed he confessed it on his deathbed.
Deathbed confession. What was the alleged reason?
The story goes that Bertha had witnessed him murder a traveling hawker who had become overly familiar with Mrs. Schippan, his wife, and threatened to expose Mathis. So Bertha had to be silenced.
Wow, that's a movie plot right there.
It is. This theory provides a grim internal motive aligning with Mathis's strict, volatile reputation and potentially explaining the sheer rage behind the attack on Bertha.
What about his alibi? He was in Eden Valley, right?
Exactly. And that's where this theory faces significant, almost insurmountable challenges. Mathis had a confirmed alibi for New Year's night, being some 20 kilometers away. The idea that he rode all the way back home, murdered Bertha, and then rode all the way back to Eden Valley without anyone noticing is largely considered absurd.
Yeah, that sounds pretty improbable. 40-kilometer round trip on horseback in the middle of the night, committing a murder in between, unnoticed.
Highly unlikely given the logistics and conditions of the time. Furthermore, the minister who was with Mathis at his deathbed, when later questioned about this supposed confession, stated, tellingly, he might have confessed, then he might not have.
Very ambiguous.
Right, indicating it was a private matter for the church and conscience, not a police investigation, and certainly didn't confirm the lurid rumor. So while it offers a compelling narrative, it lacks strong factual grounding.
Okay, so the father theory is shaky. What else? The mysterious intruder.
Another theory, often brought up in cold cases, suggested an unidentified drifter as the perpetrator.
The vanishing man from the Chief Justice's summary.
Precisely. This theory posits that a transient worker, common in rural areas then, might have happened upon the isolated farmhouse, maybe looking for food or shelter. Things went wrong.
Plausible on the surface? Maybe?
Maybe. But this theory conspicuously lacks a clear motive. It offers no logical explanation for how a stranger would know the parents were away, or, more specifically, why Bertha was targeted with such extreme personal violence.
Good point. The level of violence seems personal, not random.
And there's also the problem of the tracker, Thomas King. Despite the compromised scene, he found no signs of anyone external entering or leaving the property. So while the drifter theory seems plausible on the surface, it doesn't really stand up to scrutiny against the known facts. Both the father and drifter theories highlight the human need to find an explanation, any explanation, even a speculative one, when official channels fail. But the crucial absence in both is strong corroborating evidence. The drifter theory, in particular, struggles to explain the intensely personal nature of the violence and the lack of other signs of forced entry or robbery usually associated with such random acts. It's a convenient ghost-in-the-machine hypothesis, but one that doesn't quite fit the specific details of the scene.
So, given the unsolved nature of this case, modern analyses must really highlight the huge differences in investigation then and now.
Oh, absolutely. The contrast is stark. The bungled examination of the crime scene, where dozens of neighbors trampled potential evidence before police arrived, is unthinkable today with our rigorous forensic protocols.
Yeah.
When we say fingerprinting was still new, it wasn't just a matter of limited adoption. The very techniques for lifting and preserving latent prints from difficult surfaces were rudimentary, if they existed at all.
Basically useless here.
Pretty much. And regarding footprints, just imagine trying to identify a suspect's unique gait or shoe print when literally dozens of nosy neighbors, as reports describe them, had trampled over every inch of the crime scene. Each footfall wasn't just disturbing evidence, it was actively destroying it.
Making any meaningful analysis impossible from the get-go.
Exactly. This loss of crucial initial evidence makes any modern re-examination incredibly difficult, a true testament to how much we've learned, often the hard way.
Did this case actually lead to changes?
Yes, It's often cited as doing just that.
Right.
This case didn't just change criminal investigation in Australia, it served as a brutal, formative lesson. It directly contributed to the push for formalized police training in crime scene preservation, the establishment of dedicated forensic units, and a greater understanding of what constitutes admissible evidence.
A real turning point.
It's often seen that way, pushing Australian law enforcement away from purely observational and anecdotal evidence towards a more scientific methodology, laying groundwork for future advancements like fingerprinting becoming standard practice. It's a stark reminder of how far forensic science has come.
Makes you realize how likely it is that such a case today would be solved relatively quickly.
Highly likely. DNA analysis, sophisticated blood spatter interpretation, controlled crime scene management, the tools are vastly superior. And indeed, even basic things like the physical location of Bertha's body on the floor versus the significant amount of blood found on the beds and sofas, yet apparently little blood on the floor. That still baffles experts. It suggests a dynamic and confusing story that modern techniques could likely decipher much more effectively.
And the house itself, what happened to the Schippan home?
It became a local legend, a focal point of unease. It stood empty for years, a silent monument to the tragedy, before eventually being purchased. Subsequent owners reported strange noises and an uncomfortable atmosphere.
Ah, the haunted house trope.
Inevitably, people claimed the house was haunted. And the case itself became a chilling cautionary tale for young women in the region, a warning about staying home alone, the fragility of safety. A story told in hushed tones to instill a sense of fear and vigilance.
Passed down through generations.
Exactly. The enduring fascination with this case demonstrates how unresolved trauma and profound injustice can become deeply ingrained in a community's identity and folklore. As one elderly resident, Edwin Bosch, reflected later, his words echoing the sentiment of many.
What did he say?
This place was never the same. After Bertha died, nobody locked their doors afterward. Trust died alongside that poor girl.
Wow. Trust died alongside that poor girl. That's powerful.
It speaks to a profound rupture in the social contract of that community. The fundamental trust, the very bedrock of their shared existence, was irrevocably shattered, leaving behind a persistent undercurrent of unease and a collective trauma that lingered for generations, poisoning the well of communal harmony.
So, the tragic passing of Bertha Schippan remains officially unsolved. A chilling testament to a time before modern forensics, when circumstantial evidence and powerful public opinion could steer the course of justice, but not always to a clear, definitive conclusion.
Precisely.
We've taken a deep dive into the harrowing events of New Year's Night 1902, the sensational trial that followed, and the lingering questions that have haunted Australia for over a century.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really underscores the critical importance of objective investigation, the painstaking evolution of legal and forensic processes, and the societal cost when a true crime remains open, its truth elusive.
Yeah.
The what-if scenarios regarding Mary, Gustav, or even Mathis continue to fuel speculation, highlighting that deep human need for closure and the often elusive nature of absolute truth in such complex cases.
It's frustrating not having an answer.
It is. But what's truly fascinating here is how multiple perspectives, even when they conflict and offer no easy answers, ultimately enrich our understanding. They invite critical thinking about historical legal processes and their lasting, often painful impact.
So, what does this all mean for you, our listener, as you reflect on Bertha Schippan's tragic story? What stands out to you as the most compelling piece of evidence, or perhaps the most convincing theory, however incomplete?
Good questions to ponder.
What questions would you still ask if you were a detective on this case today, armed with modern technology like DNA analysis and advanced crime scene preservation? We invite you to continue your own deep dive into this enduring mystery and perhaps uncover a piece of the puzzle that still eludes us after all this time.